Hello, my amazing artists. Today we're going to practice our wet on wet. It's wet! Wet on wet watercolor technique with animal silhouettes. Can you guess what mine is? Hang around to find out. When making our animal silhouettes, we need to think about the outline of the shape of the animals. Here's my sloth here, and you'll notice I drew the outline. There is not a lot of detail. It's like a shadow, like if you were to look at the shadow of my hand outside on the sidewalk, you could see the outline of the shape of my hand, but you wouldn't be able to see the details like my knuckles or my nails or anything like that. You would only be able to see the outline or the silhouette. So that's what you need to keep in mind when you are drawing your animal. Also, to put a fancy art word to our wet on wet watercolor painting, it's wet! This part where we didn't paint is actually our negative space, or the space where there's nothing in a piece of artwork. But since we are using the paint around our silhouette of the animal, the negative space actually becomes our subject. So there is your fancy art word of the day.
Now it is your turn. Pick an animal and draw its silhouette. Remember, a silhouette is like a shadow, and just like a shadow, you won't be able to see any detail on the inside of the lines.
Once you have your silhouette drawn, we are going to tape down our paper to the table using masking tape. That way, when the paper gets wet and wants to squish up, it will be held flat to the surface. So we won't get all those weird bumps in it. So we're going to start by doing our tape right along the edge, and we're going to make like a little border along the edge, because where we put the tape, there is not going to be any paint. And we're going to start our wet on wet technique by making our paper wet. It's wet! So you're just going to take water, plain old water, and we're going to paint all of the place where we want color on our pictures. Following very carefully along the lines that you've drawn with your silhouette. The parts that remain dry won't have any color on them. So paint very carefully around the edges of your drawing, but we do also need to go fast because we don't want the water to dry, because I want to allow our paint to spread out. Okay, now that I have all of my paper covered with water, I'm going to go ahead and activate my watercolors. For mine, I'm going to use, I think, these cool colors here, the purple, blue, and green. So I'm going to go ahead and take my water and activate those, adding a little bit of water and kind of whooshing around till I get like a paint consistency.
Activate, activate, activate. All right, let's go.
All right, now with the paint on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and touch on the paper where I want the color to be. And since we already have water down, the watercolor is going to spread out on its own, creating a neat effect and making colors easy to blend. If you want to switch colors, just wash off your brush, dip it back in, and the more watery you have your watercolors, the more they are going to spread out. And I can even use the color paint that's on here and spread and blend a little bit very easily. Even if I drip it on here, you'll notice that the blops spread out very easily. Here is a tip for when you're painting with watercolors or any type of paint. You want to paint with the brush on its tippy toes like this.
Tippy toes, tippy toes. I don't see your tippy toes.
Not like this. No boot scoot boogie on the page. Tippy toes. Keep those paintbrushes on their tippy toes.
Tippy toes.
Okay, So if you get like a weird puddle like this, one thing you could do is take a little piece of paper towel and we can just kind of soak it up a little bit. And that will help take away your puddle. You could even reuse your brush to kind of even out your colors a little bit.
3, 2, 1.
Once your watercolor is dry, you're going to go ahead and peel off the tape and remove your painting from the table. And then go ahead and take an eraser and erase any pencil lines that you can still see. And you have finished your wet on wet watercolor with an animal silhouette. Hooray! It's wet!